The Collective Whisper Podcast with Simon K. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Collective Whisper Podcast. I'm your host Simon K and you're very welcome to this show. We have a great guest for you this evening. And before we go and tell you who the guest is, we would just like to remind you if you could please follow and subscribe to the show and help us out because we are a small podcast growing, but we need your help a little bit, so we appreciate that very much. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to welcome this week's guest, Sonya Macari. Born in Ireland of Italian descent, Sonya Macari began appearing in television commercials in Dublin at the age of 18, and her acting debut was in the Irish hit show The Clinic, followed by a recurring role on Showtime's The Tudors. She now resides in Los Angeles and has built on the success she's achieved as a stage and screen actress in Ireland, playing a variety of roles including a feature in the 10-time Oscar-nominated silent movie The Artist, the title role of Mayor Magdalene for the Hallmark channel, and Italian spy Antonia for the hit show Chuck on NBC, Francesca in the TV series Caravaggio, and My Mother, the Pope. Other credits include the lead role of Sara in an apocalyptic science fiction movie entitled Protocol, alongside Eric Lange, and Eva Clark, a 1930s stage actress driven by the pressure of achieving and losing fame in Behind the Curtain, a film noir, homage, and festival favourite. In Kiss the Devil, a fantasy thriller, Sonya stars as Vanessa alongside Doug Jones and was nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Utah Film Festival and won Best Supporting Actress at the Maverick Movie Awards. Just recently, Sonya booked a role in the hit American show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is due to air worldwide soon. Sonya is also a book narrator and has narrated several books for Penguin, Random House International. She is the author of The Actor's Passport, which is a go-to guide specifically geared for younger actors starting off in the business. When not on stage or set, she writes and is currently writing a 6-part comedy series. Being part Italian, Sonya is also very passionate about La Cucina Italiana and is working on a book with her mother Kira on Italian rustic cooking from the Lazio Valcomino region of southern Italy. She is also married to musician Colin Devon from the Devlins fame, and they have 2 young children together, and they both live in LA with their respective careers. So welcome to the show, Sonya Macari. How are you?
I am really well, Simon. How are you?
Great. It's lovely to have you on. It's nice. I've seen your work in bits and pieces over the years. I've seen you on the Tudors and different things and stuff. But it's nice to get in touch with you and get you on the show and hear what you're doing right now with everything. How is life for LA in LA rather, I should say?
Life in LA. Well, life in LA is always, I was going to say adventurous. Life in LA is great. It's great. We are blissfully happy. We've been here for 10 years and we love it. We call it home. We're busy. We've got the kids. We're back working after the whole COVID business nonsense. The weather, the sun is shining, and we love it. We love it. It's home. We live out in Pasadena. It's a beautiful residential area and it's great for kids. The kids love it. They're in the new school. We just moved out here in March this year. So, but we always loved Pasadena. So we're thrilled that we're here,
Brilliant. That's really nice. How many years have you been in LA in total now?
I always say 10 years, but that's a lie. I always say 10 years, but no, it's not true. I would say I officially moved here in 2009, but we've, moved about quite a bit. But definitely a lot more than 10. I don't even want to do the math, really. Time flies.
And it's funny because I've seen, just from other podcasts and listening to other shows, there's quite a few people after so many years in LA kind of are moving to other places and say, oh, LA has become too much now and with the traffic and the pollution and everything, and they're moving to other states. Do you find that a lot with people Are they still around or people have moved?
I do. I think because of COVID, really. I think within the last year, particularly, I mean, this city now is back busy as it's never been busier. It's as if COVID never existed. But within the last year, a lot of people have definitely moved to different states. I find that a lot of people that my husband Colin works with, the musicians or those who are allowed to work from home and they have office jobs, particularly, they're happy to move out of LA because they can. And I mean, I think it's a great thing. It's the quality of life is a little different. If I were to be stuck in traffic every day, I wouldn't like it. Luckily, I don't have to be, but it is pretty taxing. It's the traffic is pretty insane in LA. It's insane.
It's actually crazy, isn't it, that for a city with so much traffic and obviously a bad history of pollution and everything, that even up to this day, I know Elon Musk and them have kind of looked at the prospect of doing underground systems, but it's amazing that the transport system itself is not great in LA, and you kind of have to have a car, don't you?
You have to have a car. I mean, the city is so spread out. You have to have a car. There's no other way around it. And I don't particularly advise the public transportation, especially after 6 p.m. in the evening.
Okay.
So, it's not something I would, sort of jump on a bus or a train with the kids. No, it's not something I would do. Been there, done that. And it's a little sketchy pre-kids, When I first moved here, obviously I wasn't driving straight away. And it took a little getting used to the public transportation, which isn't that great in itself because you're doing a lot of walking. You're getting on a bus, then walking, getting on a train, and it's utter ridiculous. You spend a day getting to your destination, and then you're home late at night because the public transportation is god awful. However, then you start driving and you need to get used to the highways and it's aggressive. There are 6 lanes and everyone's going at a certain speed. Just get in there and get with it. It's pretty intense.
I can imagine, like I've obviously heard in the past, people talking about the bus system and, it can be a bit ropey in the evenings and stuff, but I wasn't sure about the train. The train can be quite risky. It depends where you're going as well, does it?
Yeah, I mean, downtown particularly, I haven't been on public transportation in years, Simon, in years, but sadly there's a lot of homelessness, in LA, and they're all on the buses, they're all on the public transportation. So, it's sad, and but you can understand it's not, you wouldn't be taking your 4-year-old or your 7-year-old on public transportation at night. So you have to drive. You have to drive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because, I think the last, I was in LA in 2019 and you do notice there's a lot of homelessness and, and you have that in a lot of those cities in the West Coast, particularly. I know they're in other cities, in Philadelphia and New York, but I think you notice it more in Los Angeles or Las Vegas or San Francisco, because you have this, a really good climate and, you see everybody on Venice Beach enjoying themselves. And then you drive through the streets and you see under the bridges, you see all the homeless people and you're kind of like, wow, okay, there's a lot here under this one bridge in particular. And then you find others. So it's something I think obviously that, over time you hope they will tackle, but it's an issue that's been there for quite a while, no?
It's been, oh my gosh, it's never been as bad as it is today, and there are hundreds of thousands of homeless people. It is primarily because of the climate. The sun is shining, so it's easier for them, but it is it's insane. It's so sad, and it hasn't gotten better, and they say they're working on it, but it hasn't gotten better. It is one of the reasons why we moved to Pasadena as well. We lived in a wonderful area close to Silver Lake, and we had been there for about 10 years. I'm sticking with 10 years all the time. I don't know, but we were there for about 10 years. And, we loved it, and we loved our neighbors. We loved the neighborhood. Now, the place was getting a bit smaller for us because we have the 2 kids, a boy and a girl. But the area was slightly changing, and the homelessness sadly was just getting more and more intense. So we decided it was the best option was just to move.
Do you think as well, is it kind of like that whole idea of the gold rush in Alaska and Yukon years and years ago, where everybody went looking to get rich and to be successful, but of course there's only room for so many successful people and there's only so many places. So that kind of ideology, I kind of look at Los Angeles and
Mm.
Hollywood. There's probably a lot of homeless people that moved out to the West Coast to follow a dream and then got caught up in the world of drugs or just not being able to pay bills and so on. Do you think that's a lot to do with it, the whole Hollywood dream?
It's interesting. I don't really know if that's the case. I mean, firstly, that Hollywood dream, people are so aware and conscious of, oh, Hollywood, bright lights, you go there and you become famous. It's so unrealistic. Firstly, it's unrealistic. And it just doesn't happen. It does to a very small amount of people where they might have overnight success. That is incredibly rare. But, when you hear of an actor or you hear of someone who's in this amazing show and is a wonderful actor, chances are they've been working for years and years and they've been working their butts off. Now, in terms of the homelessness, I would say, sure, there's a percentage of the homeless people that are actors or were actors and they were seeking, fame and fortune. And I don't know what percentage of that would be the case, but if that would be the case, however, it's just sad. I mean, you see a lot of young families as well, and a mixture of people, within the streets, and it's pretty intense. It's pretty insane, and I do think the climate has a lot to do. It is the reason behind them being in Los Angeles. In fact, I think this is true. There are more homeless people in the state of California than any other state in the U.S., and they do say it's primarily because of the weather.
Yeah. And, somebody said this to me once, and it's a crazy thing too, isn't it? They said, obviously in California, you have these beautiful parks and, Sequoia and Yosemite and all of these beautiful places. And yet, you don't get people moving to natural parks to live off the land, but you get people moving to cities to live, to try and follow a dream or to have it. And then they try and live off the land of the city. And it's very difficult to do because you obviously, when you're in the wild or something, you can hunt animals and you can, you can sustain yourself maybe through nature. But in the city, you need cash and you need money. And, I can imagine LA is quite expensive for people to live in. So unless you get to a certain standard of living, you either have to leave or, as you said, you go down that path of ending up homeless, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's you hear countless stories every day of people wanting to make a living in LA, in Los Angeles, and it is incredibly expensive, especially a lot of these young actors that are waiting tables and they can't make ends meet and they're trying to pay rent, let alone put food on the table. Sadly, after a year, they are on a flight back home to their mammy, but those who leave, there are a bunch of people landing. As much as there are people leaving, there's a flow, there's constant flow of people coming and going. And it is really tough for young actors, to make ends meet in this town, and it is pretty expensive. It is absolutely. The cost of living here is crazy. I mean, New York is the same, but in New York, you don't need to drive. However, rent is astronomical, and you're living in a tiny box. In New York City, but.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Yeah, it's different. It's, I suppose, really the thing that for musicians and actors, Hollywood kind of was the place to go in the 80s and 90s. And, still is obviously for actors and everything. Musicians, I'm not so sure. It's kind of changed a little bit, but there's so much of a network there as well that, you can work with people. And you have the film industry, obviously, with sync and license and music. So there's still a big playground for musicians there. But I think in New York, it's kind of a thing when you go there, you have to work hard in different types of jobs, and it's a different type of path to success, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I actually moved to New York when I was 18, and it's definitely a different type of city. The energy is different. I love New York. I actually love New York more than LA, to be honest. And I would live there if I could. Obviously, with the kids, it would be tricky. However, um, it is a different animal, and I don't know what it would be like today to embark on an acting career in New York. New York is also very theatrically based as well in terms of stage. LA is more TV and film. I would say it's equally as competitive. Who knows? I mean, I was 18. It was a long time ago when I was there, and I was studying and I was working, and it was actually one of the best times of my life.
Well, before we get on to let's talking about New York and when you went there, tell us. Let's go back a little bit, obviously, to when you were young, and so you were born in Dublin, yes, and you grew up in Dublin, but your parents and your family obviously are Italian descent. So tell us a little about that story. Like, is it are they first, second generation, or what's the story?
They're first generation, but I was born in Dublin and I grew up in Cork City actually. I moved to Cork. I moved to Cork when I was 1, and I was there. I did my leaving cert in Cork City. I was 15 when I was just 15 when I did my leaving cert, and then we had moved up to Dublin when I was not even 16 actually, because I remember taking the train down to Cork to get my leaving cert results, and I was still 15, which is completely nuts. Yeah, but my parents are Italian, and I grew up in Cork City, living in Italian culture, having the best of both worlds, and spending my winters in Ireland and my summers in Italy with my grandparents and my family, and it was just an amazing childhood, lovely, lovely childhood. And my family are, we're Italian, but we're very much Irish as well. I always say Irish, Italian blood, Irish heart.
Right. And it's I mean, nowadays in Ireland, it's so much more multicultural, and you'll see obviously, families from Nigeria, families from Spain, every kind of family, and maybe the parents are Spanish descent or Nigerian descent or Italian, and the kids grow up with both cultures.
Yeah.
But for you guys, obviously growing up in that Italian background in Cork City, was there a lot of Italians around, and were your parents trying to keep the traditions alive?
Yeah, well, we tried to keep the tradition alive by moving up to Dublin because there were a lot more Italians in Dublin,
Okay.
family and friends, but very, very few Italians in Cork City. And it was it's interesting actually, because I do remember growing up in school. I was always considered the Italian girl, but in Italy, I was always considered the Irish girl. So you'd almost feel like you don't belong anywhere. It's like
you're halfway on the boat.
But hey.
What part of Italy are your family or your parents from originally?
In between Rome and Naples.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful part of the world, and I miss it. I miss it so much. So literally in between Rome and Naples, not too far from the Amalfi Coast, which is utterly breathtaking.
Wow.
Yeah, and I used to go every year. Obviously being in LA, when we travel, we tend to go back to Ireland a lot more than anywhere else because we're catching up with family and all of that stuff. So, but yeah, I look forward to bringing the kids to Rome. So that'll be a nice adventure.
That'll be nice, yeah. I'm sure, yeah, because I think as well, for people that are of dual descent, or that kind of dual citizenship, I suppose you could call it. It's quite interesting because you have that culture and heritage from both worlds. Now, also, obviously, on the negative side of that, you can also have kind of little bits of xenophobia or racism, or people not understanding your culture. So did you have like any kind of challenges when you were younger because your family were Italian, or did you feel that there was never a problem with that?
There was never a problem, as far as I can remember. You know, no, luckily, thankfully, I never experienced any of that, and I was always the quiet kid at the back of the classroom, observing more so than putting the hand up. I was always that quiet girl at the back, just watching everybody. And I was always the youngest in class as well, so I was quite shy. I was very shy. Luckily, I never experienced any racism. I had my few friends, and no, it was great. It was great. I mean, things are a little different today, and I hope that we've all sort of moved on from that. If anybody has experienced any of that, but you do find every time I go back to Ireland, of course, I see just it's multicultural. I mean, you walk down the street, and it is kind of amazing. It's pretty brilliant, and even looking at the casting, looking at the commercials, everyone is just different ethnicity, and and they've got the Irish accent. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's for me what's amazing, when you watch, whether it be, crime dramas, love, hate, kin, these kind of shows, or even, Fair City and stuff, you see the diversity, and it's amazing, obviously. And when you see even guests on the Late Late Toy Show, and you can see obviously they have a different heritage. It could be African, it could be Scandinavian, it could be German, but then they have the really strong Irish accent, and I think it's a lovely thing. I mean, to have that mixture, it's kind of like years ago, I think there was an island in the Caribbean where there was so many Irish expats, the diaspora went, and a lot of the people on the island had Irish accents because of that. They learned their English from the Irish. So I think it's really interesting when you see now the multiculturalism in Ireland, and the talent as well. For me, that's one thing I'm kind of watching a lot and I'm observing, is the amount of new artists and singers that are coming out of Ireland that have other heritage and other backgrounds, but that are blending it with Irish music and Irish rap and hip hop and everything. And it's producing this really original thing. And for me, that's what's the exciting part. I think, like with the acting world, it's great and there's nice to see all things. But I find with the music world now, that's the more interesting part because of what they're producing,
How interesting, and I would be sort of more aware of the acting world,
yeah,
especially from Ireland, and the wealth of talent is through the roof, and I think Ireland and the UK, especially in the States, we're known for being such great actors. We've studied and we've gone to the great schools and we've done the work on the stage, and we're known for that, particularly. But in terms of musicians, yeah, I think that's so interesting just to have that diversity, and for them to, and I think Colin would definitely be far more aware of that world than I am, but I'm a little sort of, I can't really comment on the whole music element to especially the new people coming up. You hear of people reading articles and you're listening to stuff on the radio and you're like, who are they? And there's new people coming up.
For me, like I do a segment every week on the podcast where it's like Artist of the Week, and I'm kind of primarily focused on Irish artists and stuff. But when I start kind of looking and delving and seeing new singles and new people out, and you kind of look and go, okay, there's the Irish artists there and stuff, but then there's the Irish artists with different backgrounds and different heritages and the music you're producing, and you're kind of really surprised. And you think there's an Irish type of music, and then you go, wow, this is the future of the Irish music. Like these kids coming out with like Irish hip hop and coming out with, and the thing about it is, other artists have tried the whole Irish hip hop thing, and because they're predominantly Irish, it works a little bit, but maybe not as well. But then when you get people, especially with African heritage, who have a different type of rhythm and maybe grew up with a different type of music, and they mix it with the Western music and mix it with the hip hop and their influences, and it produces a totally different thing, which is very unique, you know?
I can see that. Yeah, how interesting. We actually were watching the Late Late Show the other night, and there were the two young guys rapping.
That's
And
right.
they were absolutely brilliant. But I did mention to Colin, I said to him, do you notice the diversity with all these kids? You know,
Yeah.
they're Irish, but they're so talented, and they're just no inhibitions, and they're, there was just they were amazing to watch. But yeah, you've got an array of talent and just from different backgrounds, but yet they have the Irish accent. But the two young lads rapping was quite funny.
They were funny. They were funny, and you know that moment when the guy came on singing the opera and the young guy behind him making the faces. I was saying to my wife, I said, he's stealing the show there. That's going to be the meme of the week, you know, his face.
You're so right, because we actually played that back. My kids were laughing their heads off, and I said to Colin, there's always a moment in the Late Late Show where somebody steals the show, and that was the moment.
Yeah, it was very special. That was a lovely moment because obviously, you know, him getting the music production equipment, and you know, it was really nice moment, and you could see how much it meant to him. But that's it. That's the future, isn't it? That's, you know, like kids discovering music, or you know, and it being a comical moment, and you can make memes out of it. But the great thing is those kids, when they get a leg up, who knows what they can become. And, you know, it's great for them to look back and say, oh, the Late Late Show helped me, or whoever helped me. So I think it's great. Yeah, and, you know, the Late Late Show, I suppose, can get a lot of flack for its different types of guests. And, you know, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's rubbish. But the toy show kind of usually delivers. Some years it's better than others because of the set and the concept and the theme. But I mean, when it comes to the kids and just the whole kind of originality and just they are who they are, you can't beat it.
You can't beat it. We love it. We love it, and we have it on the player here. We watch it every year. But you know, we it's a tradition for us to watch it, and the kids now, they're at that age where they're so into it, you know. But I will admit, there are tears flowing as well. You know, that moment when that kid got all his gear, and you could see it in his face, just the shock of it. But he was so, you know, he was so grateful, and you could see how much it meant to him. You know, Colin's looking at me, and I'm, you know, tears are tears are flowing. You know, and it's heartwarming, and it's just he's great with the children as well. You know,
it's a lovely moment, and it's those kind of moments you can see when kids, you know, just like are truly authentic, and it's, you know, it's. Oh, how old are your kids now?
So Evie is 7, and Evie's in school. I was up at 6 a.m. I brought it to school. Leo is downstairs, and he's a little sick today, so he was delighted.
Oh, poor thing.
And he's going to be 5 tomorrow.
Oh, really nice. Wish him a happy birthday for us. That's nice. That's lovely. And so for you, obviously living in LA, and you said you get home sometimes, and you were home last year during COVID. Is it harder, you know, like obviously to get home, and are you doing lots of Zoom calls with the family? Because most of your family are in Dublin, or are they in other parts of Europe as well? Or
no, most of my family are in Dublin, and you know, I would talk to my mother every day, every other day, my dad, and my brothers, my sister. So we chat a lot. There's a huge, you know, the whole Zoom life. There's a lot of Zooming going on in this house, and I try and avoid, you know, Zooming my family, because we would be either on the FaceTime or just on a quick call, you know, just briefly catching up, I should say. But you know, we do our best to get back. You know, we were there for quite a few months last year, which was perfect because the kids were being homeschooled on Zoom. Again, back to the Zoom. And we decided to stay because it just gave them the freedom to run around. And we were still living in the previous address. So it was perfect. And it was the right decision to stay. And we were there until November. Then this year we were over in Dublin during the summer. And now we're heading back for Christmas on the 14th. So we try. We really do get back as often as we can. and spend time with family and catch up, and with Colin's dad and his sister and his whole family. So we love it. The kids love it. The kids absolutely love being back in Ireland because they know it's such a huge part of our life, and they're very much, even though they were born in the States, they know that it's who we are, and Ireland is our home and family. The kids, the nieces and nephews, they absolutely spoil them. They dote on them and they look up to them, and my kids look up to them, and they just have the best time.
And do you have any Italian relatives in the US?
I do. Here's a funny story for you. Funny that you mentioned that. I have, there is some family in New York and I believe in Washington that I've never met from my father's side. And I was recently on It's Sunny in Philadelphia, and I'm wondering why you're asking me this. Maybe you read something. Anyway,
No. I'm just thinking because obviously there's so many Italians in New York, and obviously a lot of people from the home country,
yes.
Decide to, because there's a lot of immigration, much like Ireland, where you have the Italians and the Irish and the Polish in
Absolutely,
New York. So I'm thinking there's probably somebody maybe.
There is, and he's actually quite a well-known actor. So. Yes. So I was working on It's Sunny in Philadelphia not too long ago. Danny DeVito, of course, is in, and I had met him actually a couple of years back, about 3-4 years ago, and we had a brief chat. And lovely man, very funny, an absolute gentleman, and just hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. And so we chatted, but I walked away. It was a very brief chat. We were on Extra, which is a sort of like an entertainment show, and he happened to be there. And I went up to him and I said hi, and we chatted about what he was doing and what I was doing. And then when I walked away, I was kind of kicking myself because I really wanted to tell him that there was a chance we were related.
Really?
Yeah. And I never did. So okay. I remember posting a photo of myself and Danny DeVito, and the Italians in Dublin were commenting saying, he's your relation. He's your cousin, or he
really.
And I never really I never really got into it, So this year, it was September, I auditioned for the show, and they were supposed to shoot it in Ireland actually. Because of COVID, they couldn't do it. So, and I'm kind of thankful for that because I wouldn't have been cast. They would have obviously, cast.
Yeah, they would have looked for maybe someone in Ireland.
In Ireland, yeah. So I auditioned, and then I was put on, on hold or pinned, as they call it. And you're waiting for the week to find the news, hear the news, and then you get cast, and then you go through the motion of, getting ready and all that stuff. And I rang my dad and I said, can you tell me exactly how we're related to Danny DeVito? And he explained it to me. And I said, fine, got it. Okay. So on the first day that I was working on set, on my lunch break, I walked out of my trailer and I knocked on his door. And this lady came out and I said, oh, hi, I'm Sonya. I'm working, today and da-da-da. I'd love to say hi to Danny. And she said, oh, he's on the phone and, come back after lunch. And I said, sure, okay. So, and I did explain to her, it was his PA, and she wanted to know, of course, why I wanted to talk to Danny. And I explained it to her and she said, okay. And she figured, well, if she's working on the set and she's an actor and, I'll pass on the information. And she said, come back. So after lunch, she saw me coming out of my trailer and she was like, oh, come. He wants to say hi. And I could hear him say, is she here? So he comes out and I literally said, Danny, hi. I said, I just wanted to say hello. I said, I'm working today on It's Sunny. So far, I've had an amazing day. I can't wait for tomorrow. And I just wanted to introduce myself. As much as I'm Irish, I'm very much Italian. And my grandmother's sister married a DeVito. And I basically explained the history,
the connection,
and the connection. And he looked at me, and I said, well, the DeVitos had moved to Belfast, they had moved to Limerick, and then they moved to O'Connell. They were in the amusements business, and we both said on O'Connell Street. And he looked at me. We both said O'Connell Street, because they moved to O'Connell Street, and they were in the amusements business there. And he looked at me and he said, you're my cousin. And I said, I know it's crazy, but, he's like, come in. So we chatted for a long time, and I said, listen, this has been amazing, and I would have regretted, not talking to you, and, because I was working with the rest of the cast, not him. So I was working with Charlie Day and the rest of the cast. My scenes weren't with him, and I wanted to talk to him. So I said, I'm glad I got the opportunity. And I said, look, I'll let you go. I know you have a busy day ahead. And he was like, oh, no, take my number. And we took a photo, and it was just, for me, it was amazing. It was just kind of like the cherry on the whole experience. It was a dream, an absolute dream experience. And he's lovely. He's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, he comes across as a lovely guy. And, of course, when you're a huge Hollywood star like that, I'm sure when he's on set, lots of people want to talk to him, but not everybody is his cousin, so that's a claim to fame. But it is difficult, isn't it? Because when you're on those sets and you're trying to, you don't want to be fake, you want to be totally genuine, but you want to introduce yourself. But it's quite difficult, isn't it? And sometimes you need you need something to get the attention, like to say, hi, I'm whatever, and would you mind, talking to me, and can we have a chat? And they probably get that request so many times. So, it was good that it worked out that way for you.
I totally know what you mean. And I think that the fact that I was, coming out of my trailer, and they knew she's just not a random person, off of the street, sort of coming in, wanting to talk to him.
Yeah.
We were in the studio, and, there weren't many productions working that day because of COVID. There were only 3 productions. So there's a clique of people, and they know you're there, and you're a part of what's going on, and you're collaborating with everybody. So I did have an in, and I was respectful about it. I went about it in a nice, polite way. But yeah, I'm sure these people are completely just day in, day out, bombarded with, hi, I want to say hi, and, and introduce myself, and, and asking for stuff, and, just trying to push their way in, I suppose, but yeah, it's interesting. But no, it was...
That's really great. So obviously, when looking back then, when you were on about, obviously, the DeVito's amusements on O'Connell Street and everything, what was it like growing up? You said you moved when you were 15. So was there a big difference once you went from Cork to Dublin and you met a lot more Italian teenagers? And, did your life change dramatically because of the richer culture of Italian people living? I don't want to say richer as in better, but I mean, there was more Italians living in Dublin. So you probably came up and were entrenched more within the Italian culture in Dublin, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of our families are, based in Dublin, both my mother and my father's side. So we had moved up to Dublin. I was just 16. There's a lot more activity. There's a lot more visiting family and friends. And at that point, I had started, acting in college, and I was preparing myself for leaving for New York. But there was that time where you're in Dublin town, you're in Dublin city, and it's, it's far bigger than Cork, and you're just involved more, and there's definitely a lot more going on, and you're surrounded by a lot more family as well. So it definitely did change the dynamic and the day-to-day living, and we loved Cork. We absolutely loved Cork. But moving to Dublin was definitely the best decision for us, just in terms of lifestyle and being close to those that you love. And then we were growing up, so we were involved in, we had finished, I was going to say high school, but finished secondary school, and lives were changing. We were becoming adults, myself and my siblings. We were all going different directions and doing different things. But Dublin was, definitely the best decision. And I haven't been back to Cork much, to be honest, and I'd love to visit. But that's also a part of my upbringing, and and I love it. I love having that experience, of being in Cork and then moving to Dublin, and of course, I moved to New York not too long after, so.
You went from what's really funny, you went from one capital city to another capital city to another capital. I'm saying that jokingly because in Cork, they'll always say this is the real capital.
Cork is beautiful, but I did, didn't I? And I moved to New York because I felt, and it's funny because a lot of actors, I've had people ask me, why didn't you move to London? As an actor, people generally just take that next step and go to London because it's closer to home, and and it just didn't appeal to me in a sense. And as soon as I got to New York, I applied for the HB Studios, the Herbert Berghoff, and I got in. And to me, that was it. I was in, and I thought, right, I'm staying here now, because it was a difficult acting school to get in, and the Uta Hagen was the HB Studios in New York, and she, it was such a huge awakening for me when I think about it. As much as I was very young, I walked into this acting studio, and I knew I loved acting so much, but I had just developed a real love and respect for the art and craft of acting. And, I'm in with my tribe. I'm in with, like-minded people. And it was an amazing environment. And I thought, I'm bloody staying here. And New York, of course, is incredible,
And you had, previous to that training, obviously, you had trained in the Gaiety School of Acting in Dublin, hadn't you?
Yes, I worked with Patrick Sutton. I had also worked in the Dublin Acting Academy, which I don't believe it's there any longer. But as soon as I moved to Dublin, I was involved in a lot of TV commercials. And that's kind of how I started. I started working on a lot of ads, commercials for the telly, and then I studied, moved to New York. I was involved in the HB Studios there. I was doing a lot of musicals, a lot of stage work, and then I had moved back to Dublin, and then I started, I thought, right, I need a job now, and I had worked on many different kinds of jobs, but acting was always there. Acting was always, in the background, and then the Tudors came along, and yeah.
Can I ask you actually there, that's quite interesting because, so, for a lot of actors, when they're waiting for a big part or, and they can be in between jobs. So for you, especially when you were younger and you were, involved in that acting world, what kind of jobs did you fall back in and out of? Did you have a profession that you said, this is, when I'm not acting, this is what I do?
No, there's no other profession. I'm really not qualified to do anything else.
Okay.
So, true story, and I had done my leaving cert at 15, which is completely nuts. And
wow.
I literally passed by the skin of my teeth. But there was never another plan. You see, I had no plan B. And when I started studying acting, I knew I loved it so much. And I thought, I really need to make this work somehow. And the other jobs that I had was working for family, working with my brother or with my mom. And then I also worked in a club as a hostess manageress called Reynards, and I was there for a couple of years.
Oh, Reynards, yeah.
And and that's how I met my husband. So yeah, I was always involved. I was actually, when I think about it, God, I've had 1,000,001 jobs, which most actors do. I was also freelance, working as not a journalist really as such, but interviewing, high profile celebrities in town and doing photo shoots and doing all kinds of different things like that with different publications. So listen, there was always something going on, but after Reynards, that's kind of when I decided. Well, the Tudors came actually, and that was the clinic. Actually, was way before that. But shortly after the Tudors, I had decided, right, what's my next step? And I had come to LA for an event, and it was I was invited to this. It was a Cinematech award given to George Clooney, and I was invited through friends of mine, and we were here for a week, and I managed to organize meetings, with agents and managers, and just thought I'd, while I'm here, why not see what it's like and just experience what it's like to be interviewed, or just to have that, experience and see if anything comes out of it, And I got on well, and I met lovely people, and I was here for the week, and I just absolutely loved it. And I went back home, and I said to Colin, fancy moving to LA? And he said, yeah, let's do it.
Wow, yeah, because obviously with Colin at that time, I think that because you were in the Tudors in like 2007 or so, wasn't it, around that time? So when you were playing Manuela, that character, but when that was kind of wrapping up or finishing, and you were thinking, okay, I want to maybe go to LA. At that time, Colin was on a bit of a hiatus from the Devlins. Then, was it?
He was actually in Montreal. He was in Montreal recording a Colin Devlin record.
Oh, right.
And he was in Montreal I had actually moved to LA. I was here for quite a few months before he officially moved, because he was working with Pierre Marchand, his producer, in Montreal, and he was there for a couple of months, and then he came and he joined me in LA. That's what happened. Not too long after the Tudors, yeah. So I was here, and I was sort of trying to. It's interesting actually, because it feels like such a long time ago, but what I did as soon as I landed in LA, I thought, right, how can I be involved in the industry, to some capacity? Obviously, I wanted to work, straight away, and I didn't want to put myself in a restaurant or a bar, because I had done all that, and I didn't want to go down. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just wanted to be involved, within the TV and film industry, and I started working as a stand-in for actors, and I did that for quite a few years actually.
It was basically like a stand-in in a theatre. If they were sick or something happened, was that it, kind of like that?
No, so a stand-in is basically like a stand-in is a substitute for an actor, but it's for technical purposes, such as lighting.
Oh, I understand.
Yes, so such as lighting and camera placement, but it's kind of more than that. You're setting up the shot, you're taking notes on the actor, every action, direction that's given to you, you need to relay it back to them. And then when you're watching them work, you have to learn how they behave, how they stand, how they talk, because you're going to set up the next shot. And it's interesting because in the rare case that the actor is stuck in hair and makeup, you're thrown in rehearsal and you're given the sides, you're given the actor's lines, and you could be rehearsing with the actual cast, and I did this for years and I absolutely loved it. I still did.
So it's kind of to get the position of the actors for the shot and to work out the angles, and it's while the main actor can't do it.
Well, yeah, because usually, when I was working on It's Sunny, there I had a stand-in for me to set up the shot while I'm getting ready to shoot. So it's purely for technical purposes, and also, but I stood in for Julia Louis-Dreyfus for months. And the thing is, I don't look like any of these people, but I stood in for J-Lo. I don't look like J-Lo. I stood in for Megan Ori on Intelligence.
You're your own J-Lo. You're an Italian J-Lo.
I'm the Italian J-Lo. I'll take that. If I look like her at 50, I'll be happy. But I stood in for years, and I absolutely loved it, because talk about learning on the job, and I thought, well, this is clever, because you're learning the vernacular of being on a set, and you're mixed in with these people who are collaborating, and they're all working to with the same goal, and the environment is amazing. The people are actors and cast, crew, whom I absolutely love to be sort of involved in, and it was a great way to learn. It was a really, really an experience. Yeah,
and also, as well as like literally putting you in the position of those actors, you're in another position where you're networking and you're introducing yourself to directors and producers and casting agents, and maybe one of them can see you as a stand-in and go, she'd be great for this other feature we're working on.
I'm sure that's happened. It's never happened to me. What happened to me was, as much as it was learning on the job, you're there to do a job, and they're more focused on getting the work done. However, yes, you are creating relationships. I was always on time. I knew everybody's name. I was polite. When they called me on set, I was there. I did everything I had to do. I was, I would just literally step up to the plate, do it, and spend 12 hours on set, 5 days a week. That was my job, and I loved it. But I created relationships in the sense that I was standing in for actors, and I looked nothing like them. I would be either on an apple box because they were taller than me, or I would be in flats because, right? So sometimes they would even put a blonde wig on me. And a stand-in is meant to generally look a little bit like the actor, purely for camera purposes, skin tone and all that stuff. But I had created great relationships and friendships with these people that were hiring me, so they would give me all the jobs.
Did you ever do a stand-in for Monica Bellucci?
I would no, but I would.
Because obviously, you have the Italian kind of look, so maybe they'd be like, she'd be perfect to stand in for Monica.
Yes, I would.
I sound like I know her, don't I?
I would rather. Yes, you do. Do you have her number? I would rather have her career. I would rather have her career. My days of standing in are done. So here's to having Monica's career. So she needs to.
Yeah, of course.
Needs to.
Yeah. So obviously then, you moved on to, I know you were in Glee, and then you were in Chuck, and all these kind of scenes. So when you did that scene in Chuck, or when you were Antonia, did they specifically look for an Italian actress that spoke Italian?
So when I read for Chuck, these were the days where you're actually going into the room, because now it's all you're taping. There's no auditioning any longer. Who knows when we get back in the room. However, this was when I was in the room, and the role's Italian, of course. The dialogue is in Italian, so I make it my job to walk in Italian. So and you're talking with a bit of an accent. Obviously, the Irishness is gone.
Yes.
There's no hint of Irish, and you're walking in. You play the whole Italian thing because they're looking for an Italian character, and surely there are plenty of Americans that can put that on, but I played the whole authentic, Italian background and everything, and it worked in my favor. And yeah, that's it. However, on set, it was hilarious because when I had finished the job and I was, wrapping up, I was chatting away, and I had such an amazing experience on that set. It was amazing. I remember chatting away, and they were like, "Where are you from exactly?" And I said, "Oh God, I said, well, I'm Italian, you know. And they're like, oh, I said, well, you know, I'm Irish, Italian Irish. And they're like, wow, so you were born in Dublin, but yet your parents are Italian. And we thought, you know, which is interesting because, you know, you're chatting to others and you're putting on the American accent, and it's all very exhausting.
It's very diverse. I mean, because for a lot of actors, you know, they could have the look, you know, and obviously you have the Italian heritage, so you could go in and play the Italian part and, you know, speak in Italian, and but yet you can go in and do the Irish part as well, and they just think, oh, it's a more exotic looking Irish girl.
You know, yes, and I've had people say to me, "You look so Irish," you know. And if I'm reading as Irish, then obviously I'll do the whole Irish thing, and you're slating and you're doing your work, and you have an Irish accent. And I've been told you look, you know, you're Irish. And then the Italian, of course, when you're playing the whole Italian thing, you know, what is an Irish typical look anyway, you know. So I've never sort of, I guess I'm lucky I have that advantage, you know, let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to have that diversity, and especially where you can be cast, you know, because you have a distinctive look, or, you know, they'll say, oh, and she can do that accent, or she can, you know, and like as you showed in that scene, you know, as Antonia, that you can truly look Italian, and, you know, people watching that wouldn't. I looked at that scene and I was like, wow, you know, you wouldn't think you were from Ireland in that at all.
Well, you know, I speak Italian and it's part of who I am, so I guess I'm lucky in that sense. And then when I go in for American stuff, you know, I walk in American. I try and and it's really just, you know, the best thing, because it would be you know, advised obviously to walk in American, you know, when you're saying hello, and there's very little chit chat anyway when you're auditioning here. You just do the work and you leave. It's not like back home. It's like, oh Jesus, how are you? How was your night last night? Did you see this one on the telly? No. But yeah, I go in American, and I don't let on that there's Irish or Italian in me, because then they're looking for it, you know. Their ears are like, you know, they're listening.
It can, you know, if you give them too much information, it could change their decision making, because, you know, the funny thing about, I suppose, casting agents is that they can be looking for a certain person, but then if they think, oh, there's a hint of Irishness, or there's, you know, a hint of Italian or whatever, they can say, oh no, we're not looking for that. So you have to be what they want in the casting, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, first of all, you have to just give whatever's in your favor. You know, you there's so little control of a lot of stuff anyway. I mean, generally, you walk into a casting office, it's cramped. People sit in judgment. You have a script thrown at you. You've had so little time to work on the script. There are no actors, no props. People are sitting there staring at you, judging you, and you just hope for the best. You know, you do the work and you leave. There's so little control on many levels, and on a lot of stuff. So if I was reading for, you know, an American character, I would not try my best not to give away that I'm Irish or Italian. You know, because listen, you can walk into a room and they've made their decision. They've made their decision 10 seconds as you walked in. You know, they look at you and go, no, like, she might be great, but she doesn't look like what we want for so-and-so, you know?
Yeah, well, I suppose, you know, they have their minds made up before they see the people. They're like, this is who we want. And that's, you know, unfortunately, there can be some great actors or actresses and they don't get the part because of the people's opinions before they even see them. So that's kind of the way, isn't it?
With that is a lot of the time that is the case. And what's important is that when you walk into a casting room or you're putting yourself on tape, they do have somebody in mind. So your job is to just create a very compelling, unique character where they look at you, and there are times where they'll say, well, you know what, Simon is not what we wanted physically, but he gave such an incredible, unique performance, and I like his take on this character. Let's hire him.
Yeah, can we dress him up as Johnny Depp and get the Irishness out of him? Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, I won't be going for any big Hollywood movies. They can use my voice, but the physical thing I won't be. They'd probably just put me as like a Boston slugger or something in one of these bars, So I'm fine with that. That's okay. If there's any big casting agents and you need like an Irish-looking Boston slugger, I can be that guy, And can I ask you then, when you did in 2016, I know you've done a lot up to that as well, but the Kiss the Devil in the Dark and that kind of stuff, and when you won the awards and that kind of for you, when you did that kind of movie. And your peers obviously recognize it, and you got Best Supporting Actress in Utah and in the Maverick Movie Awards. That's a great thing, isn't it? Because it kind of makes you feel like, yeah, I'm on the right path.
Like all that stuff is kind of, yeah, of course, it's like validation almost, right? But it's kind of, I don't want to say it's white noise. It's wonderful to be acknowledged, for the hard work that you've put in. But that experience for me was interesting, challenging. But I met the best people. Doug Jones was the main character in that film, and Doug Jones is, he's just the king of prosthetics. He was the fish in what's the name of that film? I'm having a complete.
Oh yeah, the Pan's Labyrinth, is
Pan's
it? Pan's
Labyrinth. He's done. So Doug was incredible to work with, and he played the demon in that film. And then Damien Clark, who's on CSI, and there was also a few people from Game of Thrones, and it was such an it was tough, the actual shoot itself. And I was in Utah, which is not familiar grounds, but and then of course I went on to win awards. So yeah, it's nice, you are being acknowledged for what you do, and it's nice to win stuff.
Yeah, it's not, of course. Well, I mean, recognition, I see. The thing is, I suppose there are lots of different kinds of film festivals and independent festivals, and lots of them obviously give out awards, but one person might say, oh well, I don't place as much value on that film festival as another. But I think when you're an actor coming up and you get these awards, it means you're on the right track, because you're doing something that's getting attention. And it's kind of like brands. It's like Levi's or Coca-Cola or Apple or whatever. There are certain brands that have that kind of household name, and people might say, oh well, now if you won a Sundance Festival or Cannes Film Festival award, maybe it's better. But I think those awards, the other ones on the way up from those festivals, they're all valuable in their own right, because they are your peers and they're people within the industry who are saying, no, we like this. This was a good film or a good short or whatever,
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it all leads to something, I think the key is you just keep going. You just keep working. And I think for me personally, where I get validation and I get sort of satisfaction is I always try and be the best that I can be with whatever job is thrown at me, or not thrown at me, but when they do allow me to act, that is, or even when you just get an audition or your agent is saying, look, you're reading for this part, and you get that feedback and you're pinned. You don't always get it, So I have had opportunities, countless opportunities where it just did not work out. You're pinned and you're down to the last two, or you've gone in and you're repeatedly having meetings with people, and you think you're so close, it's going to happen, and then it doesn't. Last year, pre-COVID, I was pinned for 2 shows, and I was doing multiple tapes, and they were both for recurring shows. Recurring roles for 2 shows, and you're thinking, you think one of them is going to work out. And neither one of them worked out.
Yeah.
So, but the point to this story is that you're getting the satisfaction and the validation in knowing that you're doing something right. They're looking at you for a reason. They're asking more of you because they want to see more. They know you're capable. But there's a lot of things that have to connect for you to get it. So I don't take it personally. And that's so important for me. I've actually, I must have a really good disposition for this business because either that or it's just like a built insanity. I don't know, but I don't get overly stung. And I basically deal with rejection pretty easily. I think it's important because you're protecting yourself from being chipped away, so to speak. And I hate the word rejection. I think it's such a stupid word because there are many reasons why you don't get a job. You're not being rejected. They rejected you. I hate that word.
Yeah, you're just not being, you haven't been chosen. That's all.
That's it. And there's a huge part, if we're going to use the word rejection, there's a huge part of rejection in my life. I get rejected every week. So, but
yeah,
you keep going.
Yeah, you just have to change the narrative and you have to say, I don't get chosen every week, but I get chosen some weeks.
That's it. And, I involve myself with many other aspects of the business too, because I do a lot of narration. I do a lot of, for Penguin Random House and a few other companies. And that's another part of my job. I try and, when I don't get chosen for those roles that you really desperately would love and would sort of change the trajectory of your life, let's say, then I try and take the positive out of the negative, because you move on. There's always another opportunity knocking, but you have to leave yourself open to that. And that's what I'm doing, and it's interesting because, my kids now they're both officially in school. They're in school for the whole day. And I've had, listen, my career has been such a roller coaster. And then with the kids, I allowed myself that time to take a break, of course. And now that I have the time and I'm available and I'm sort of, working away on stuff, and there's quite a few things happening, which is great. But I always said, when the kids are in school and they're in for the full day, that's it. I'm working full time.
Yeah, well, why not? Yeah, because you have more time, and now I suppose you can do like that more kind of freelance stuff, and you can do more voiceover stuff, and you have if no one's bothering you, you can do all of that things. A question I want to ask you that I sometimes ask, actors, mainly female actresses, and this is a question that I know having spoken to my own sister, and she's in her 40s, and there's a kind of a hard road for female actresses when they reach a certain age because of the whole, especially in Hollywood, where Tom Cruise is 50 but his girlfriend's 26, and unfortunately, if you're a Hollywood actress, when you get to a certain age, you nearly have to reestablish yourself in a certain way. We've seen Helen Mirren and, obviously Monica Bellucci and these actresses, and, and they have great stature and some of them really beautiful. But it's very hard, isn't it, when you get to a certain age to get those roles, because they're being given to young starlets, and, and the casting is totally off. Indiana Jones is 70 and he has a 40-year-old girlfriend in the movie. So it's not quite right. No,
it is not quite right. And I think that hasn't changed either, has it? You still see a lot of that. I think the way I look at it is this. I have to embrace it, You can't judge it. You can't fight it. You have to embrace it. And the roles that I go up for, I could be the young mum, I could be the wife, or, and you just have to embrace it, and you have to acknowledge that is the way it is. You know, and yes, you will see the Tom Cruises of the world, and the wives are much younger. The girlfriends are much younger. That's Hollywood, isn't it? I mean,
That's Hollywood.
Yeah. Do they do that anywhere else? I don't know. But and I've had this chat with many female actors, and you really just have to acknowledge it and just embrace it. And you are who you are. Whatever you go up for, you go up for. Are the opportunities? The opportunities may be less. That may be true, you know. But when they do come, you just, you know, be the best that you can be, and that's it.
You know, just going a layer deeper into that conversation, it's kind of like when we talk about, you know, the whole machismo and you know, the balance of the sexes in the acting world or in lots of other industries. A lot of the time, there are women involved in the decisions, like casting agents and so on, that could maybe cast, you know, older women or more realistic age women to the part. But because of the pressure of money and production and studios, those women as well have to make those decisions. Maybe they don't want to make them. Maybe they're thinking, well, this actress would be perfect because she's in her 40s and that's what the character should be. But we want this 26-year-old to play a 38-year-old, you know.
Yes.
So unfortunately, it's not just, we could just say it's coming from a male kind of point of view, but unfortunately there's lots of female casting agents that are probably involved in that process as well through no fault of their own.
Yeah, I agree, and it is through no fault of their own. I find that women are a lot more supportive nowadays, especially if the casting company or the production are all women. Sadly, yes. I mean, are we blaming the men here? You know, it depends on a number of things, of course. But I do think things are slightly shifting in that respect, you know. And I think I'd like to believe that things will get better. But I see a lot of that still happening, and it's definitely sort of the male perspective, you know, coming in. It really depends, Simon. You know, there are a lot of production companies where women will only encourage to work with women. You know, and we'll find a lot of women directors and women in casting, of course, women producers. You know, so things are slightly shifting there, I will say.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's a good thing. And let's talk about your, you know, the CAS, your new kind of venture or your new initiative. Tell us about this.
Well, so last year we were obviously in a heavy lockdown in the States, and I had this idea that I wanted to put together, and how this came about was through the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, which is our union. And they had this program, and it was basically an entrepreneurial program, and you had to apply, basically. And there were 20 positions, 10 from Los Angeles, 10 from New York. And I had to basically produce an idea, a business idea. So I was given a week to put an application together and sent it through, and I got chosen as one of the 20. And my idea was Creative Acting Studios. It's an online platform for primarily European actors, Irish actors, UK actors, any actor, to be honest. And it's giving them access and an opportunity to work with coaches and casting directors, writers, producers, all sorts of different creatives from Los Angeles or New York, and it's all online. So when I got chosen as one of 20, this was March of last year. It was actually March, April, May, 3 months that I was working with these coaches and these mentors through the Screen Actors Guild, and they were basically coaching me and they were helping me, you know, so they were guiding me while I developed this idea, and I just launched it last October. So It's been interesting. It's been challenging. I
can
will
imagine.
admit, yeah, it's been tough. But I'm starting to see, I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I'm getting some attention, towards it, and it's all positive. And I've had a ton of actors say, "God, this is, what a great idea." And, thank you for giving us access to this, so I'm trying to spread the word. I launched last October. I had a wonderful coach from Los Angeles. His name is Anthony Mandel, and he's very well known. He teaches a lot of the stars, and he's an incredibly busy man, but he's a wonderful coach. So we had a weekend masterclass, and I had actors from Ireland, the UK, some from Spain actually, and I had from New York, Texas, Colorado, and Toronto. I had a bunch of different actors from different cities, and it was great. It kind of gave me sort of encouragement to keep going. So this weekend, I have, I believe, over 100 actors signed up.
Wow.
Yeah, but what is happening is there's a lady called Marcy Laroff. She's a casting director. And
yes, I've heard of her.
Yeah, so she cast, oh my God, she's cast iconic movies like E.T., Poltergeist, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Blade Runner, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. She cast a lot of Steven Spielberg's movies. A ton of stuff, Footloose. So she's giving a talk on Saturday through Creative Acting Studios, and I have actors from all over the place signed up to hear her chat about the business and basically how to audition for TV and film and what to do and what not to do, and hopefully give actors advice and tips and encouragement. And it's, the reason why I decided to set this up was, for many reasons actually, during the lockdown, because I had this idea and I thought this is a great sort of gateway for me to be involved in the industry, and I'm giving actors access to these wonderful artistic creatives. I knew it was going to keep me busy, and it has kept me very, very busy. And I can only see it growing, hopefully, fingers crossed. But it's an inspirational thing. It's an educational platform, and I can only hope it helps, really,
Wow, that's really good. And it's a great initiative. And I think, like something you mentioned there earlier, that, when someone says to you, "Oh, why don't you go to London?" and you went to New York, but actors kind of had to do that. And you could go to another city and maybe not have an agent there, or find it hard to get work. But maybe if we have more casting roles online, and, you can be in Dublin, but because in LA there's the famous pilot season, and and even the pitching season for producers and screenwriters. So it will be great if we can do more of these things with less cost. Even, like, for example, you can be in Dublin or in London and cast or audition for roles in LA without having to go to LA, which would be a great thing.
Yeah,
no?
I mean, I think, because of COVID, Zoom was such a huge part of our lives, and it is here to stay. It is a legitimate way of communicating. It's a legitimate way of learning. We're still on Zoom, having meetings with people in LA, and you're doing auditions or just general chit chats. And after this, I'm meeting with a casting director that is possibly going to work for Creative Acting Studios, and I'm meeting her on Zoom. So, and to think that there are actors around the world, around the globe, that have access to these people here is wonderful. There are a lot of young actors in Ireland or the UK or anywhere else, and they would love the opportunity to train with a well-acclaimed coach in Los Angeles. So I'm giving this to them. I'm giving them the opportunity. They have access through Creative Acting Studios. They don't need to get on a flight and be here and make things work. They can just study within the comfort of their own home. and work with
Yeah.
creatives around the US, all online. And then, yes, casting directors are always on the lookout for people, and they may find somebody that is very compelling and suitable for a role or something, and they will keep in touch with them, or they will just kind of say, let's, get connected here, and we'd love to see you for this part, or whatever the case may be. But it is purely more of an educational, inspirational platform. And I will have lots of other different coaches, writers, directors, producers, casting directors and acting coaches, all different types of creatives working on it, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's a really good initiative because it opens the doors up. And like you said, if someone can't travel, or even if somebody is thinking about going to LA, and maybe this will introduce them to that world without, we don't want someone to go and to fall foul of, the industry in such a way that they end up homeless on the streets. So this is kind of a way for them to see how the whole system works from where their own base, without because, a lot of people in the past used to make the trip, and they would arrive in LA with a few $100s and try and get a job waitressing and so on, and then find out the hard way there was like thousands of people looking for the same opportunity. So at least this way they can get a bit of training, maybe network a little, and before they decide to make that journey, no?
Exactly. And the thing is, when you do land in these cities and you try to embark on a career, within the acting world, the first thing people tell you to do is go study, go take a class, be involved in a class, and start working on material with an amazing coach, and be amongst your peers and start mixing in that way. And that is the first thing they tell you. But yes, this is giving them access of this, while they're at home. So it is hopefully a wonderful opportunity for them. And I had a workshop recently, and I'm facilitating this while the actors are working with the coaches. I had a wonderful experience watching these actors. And it's funny because not only this is my business and this is what I'm doing, as well as working on set and doing all my other bits and pieces, but I'm watching these actors work with these incredible creatives. Not only am I learning by watching them, but they're experiencing this exhilarating, phenomenal moment with this coach. And when the coach is reworking with them, and they are within their transformative stage and their minds are blown, they've had, a phenomenal experience. And you can see that. And they're so thankful, like I've had countless emails from these actors saying, thank you. This was incredible, that I actually experienced this with so-and-so. And can you send me the tape? I want to watch it. I need to see it. I want to,
Wow, that's really good. And I mean, fair play to you. That's a great initiative. And, looking forward to the future for you, and, with projects and everything. Is there new projects in the pipeline, or are you kind of looking for new things at the moment?
Listen, as an actor, you're always looking for new things, aren't you? I was in Ireland recently, and I worked on a film called Skylark. So okay. I believe that will be out in the new year. I just launched Creative Acting Studios, which is keeping me incredibly busy, and I have a few people lined up already for the end of the year and the start of 2022. Then I'm entering pilot season, so I will be, I'll be auditioning a ton, hopefully, fingers crossed. But it's kind of like, everything that I've experienced and everything that I have done up to date, I've learned so much that I can only hope that my best role is yet to come. So I'm really just looking forward to the future. And I have the time now. My kids are in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids are in school, so.
Well, that's it. And you use it, as well as you can, because, obviously now whatever happens with COVID and the film industry, if it opens up or closes down, at least now maybe this, second, third wave, whatever it is, now people have a better idea how to work through it and to do online casting and to do, like more closed sets and shoots. So hopefully it won't affect the industry too much. And hopefully, I mean, for you, I hope there's great things coming. And as you said, that next pilot season could be the launch of something amazing, and like, I think looking back over your career, you've had some great roles, and I know you've, as you say yourself, there's been some short roles and, whatever, but that's all part of the journey. And I think those things that you're in, that you might think, okay, at the time it's not much, but it always leads to something great. And, right now, looking through your CV, it's very varied. And I think great things are going to come for you,
Thank you. Well, I'm excited for the release of It's Sunny in Philadelphia because...
yeah, that will be interesting.
Listen, it's an Irish episode. Colin Meaney is brilliant in it. And the storyline is hilarious.
Yeah, I saw it. I actually was looking at, they had kind of a trailer online and it showed, and I was looking and I was thinking, are they in Ireland or is it like green screen or is it a close? So, I wasn't sure, but I saw Colin Meaney in it and I saw them like go, talking to the Irishness of it. So I was thinking that's really interesting. And I was thinking, is that out yet or can I see it? But it's not out, is it?
It's not out yet. No, I was driving through Beverly Hills the other night and there's a massive poster with the cast in their Irish, the Irish gear, and it's you'll see it, I'm sure, very soon. It's not out yet, but it will be out. It starts, the 15th season, I believe, starts the second week of January, or it's actually. Do you know what? I need to get confirmation with that. I think it's actually the end of December. It starts
okay.
15th season, yeah. But the poster for the 15th season, they're all in their sort of leprechaun gear, they're really pushing the Irish episode.
The stereotypical thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, they're funny.
Wow. Well, listen, Sonya, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I mean, thanks for sharing your life so far with us and your story. And, we really enjoyed it. And I know the listeners are going to love it. And, there's a lot more to come from you, I guess. And, we'll have you on the show again sometime with more interesting stories about the acting world, LA world, and, the whole Macari dynasty.
I'd love that. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much. And we wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Sonya Macari, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonya. I really enjoyed that interview, and thank you for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure to have you on. Some interesting stories about your own life and Colin's life as well with you, and we wish you all the best for the next year ahead, and so on and so forth for you. And you've had a successful career so far, and we just can see it growing and growing. So we wish you all the best, and thank you once again. Okay, everybody, it was a pleasure having you on the show with us this evening, and we hope you love the guests we're having, and we're going to have plenty of more interesting and varied guests over the rest of the season. Once again, I'd just like to ask you to please follow the show, please subscribe, and you can leave a review as well if you'd like. We wouldn't mind doing that if you like the show. And if you have any requests for any guests you'd like us to have on the show, please drop us a line, give us a message on Facebook, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're everywhere. We're all over the place, and we appreciate you being here with us too. So once again, look after yourself, look after all your family, and take care till the next time. My name is Simon K. Bye-bye.